This is Bermuda, an island located in a stretch of ocean that once terrified the world with stories of ships, airplanes, and people mysteriously disappearing. Surrounded by powerful storms, dangerous coral reefs, and hundreds of shipwrecks, this place does not even have rivers, lakes, or natural sources of fresh water. Yet Bermuda is one of the wealthiest and most expensive places in the world, where more than 60,000 people enjoy one of the highest standards of living on the planet. Even more remarkably, that prosperity comes from the very work its residents do to protect the territory from storms, earthquakes, and disasters worth billions of dollars. So how did the people of Bermuda transform these feared waters into one of the most prosperous places on Earth? When people hear the name Bermuda, many assume it is a tropical island in the Caribbean. In reality, the archipelago lies thousands of kilometers north of the Caribbean, in the vast waters of the North Atlantic Ocean. Bermuda is not an independent country. It is a British overseas territory with its own government and administrative system, while still maintaining a constitutional relationship with the United Kingdom. On the map, Bermuda is almost completely separated from the mainland. The archipelago lies east of the United States, far west of Europe, and does not belong to any major island chain. It is a tiny piece of land standing alone in the North Atlantic. Bermuda consists of around 7 main islands, along with more than 100 smaller islands and rocky islets, but its total land area is only slightly more than 50 square kilometers. The main islands sit close together, forming a long, narrow, curved strip of land in the middle of the ocean. Most residential areas, roads, and infrastructure are concentrated on the larger land masses that have been connected. Homes sit close to hillsides and the coastline. Building space is limited between the island's 2 shores, which means every housing and infrastructure project must be carefully planned. The closest point of land to Bermuda is Cape Hatteras on the east coast of the United States, about 1,000 kilometers to the west. Traveling east, people would have to cross nearly 5,000 kilometers of open ocean before reaching the coast of Morocco in North Africa. This isolation directly affects daily life on the islands. Food, fuel, construction materials, and many essential goods must cross the Atlantic before reaching residents. Most cargo arrives at the port in containers, where it is sorted and transported to residential areas. Visitors can also reach Bermuda only by plane or ship. As a result, The seaport and airport serve as essential connections. A major storm, a delayed ship, or a disruption to air travel can affect transportation and the supply chain across the entire island. Before the 17th century, sailors were already aware of Bermuda, but no permanent community had been established there. Dangerous coral reefs, powerful storms, and the lack of fresh water made the archipelago extremely difficult to reach. The turning point came in 1609 when the English ship Sea Venture was caught in a storm in the Atlantic. After several days of battling powerful winds and water flooding into the hull, the crew was forced to drive the ship onto the coral reefs surrounding Bermuda to avoid sinking offshore. The survivors found their way onto land, but quickly realized that the island had no rivers, lakes, or stable natural sources of fresh water. They had to search for food, collect rainwater, and use the materials available around them to survive. Using parts of the Sea Venture and timber harvested from the island, they built new ships to continue their journey. The event proved that people could survive on Bermuda despite its difficult natural conditions. In the years that followed, more groups of settlers were brought to the islands, and permanent homes and settlements began to take shape. From a shipwreck during a storm, Bermuda gradually became home to a community in the middle of the North Atlantic. Before we continue, we want to know which country you are watching this video from and what time it is where you live right now. Share your answer in the comments below so we can see where in the world this journey is being followed. Now, let's look beneath Bermuda's white rooftops and limestone coastline. Because to understand why this tiny island is both unbelievably beautiful and so harsh for life, we have to travel back tens of millions of years to the moment it first began to form. From the outside, Bermuda looks like a small paradise in the middle of the Atlantic, with crystal clear water and a coastline covered in white rock. But that appearance is the result of a geological journey that lasted tens of millions of years. The island is actually the remaining peak of a massive underwater volcano, with its base more than 4,300 meters beneath the floor of the North Atlantic. The mountain was formed by a geological hotspot around 30 to 35 million years ago. After the volcano became inactive, its summit continued to be worn down by ocean waves, creating the first foundation of Bermuda. Later, coral reefs grew around the volcanic peak, while shells and marine sediment continued to accumulate. Over millions of years, these materials were compressed and cemented into a layer of limestone nearly 60 meters thick, covering most of the volcanic base below. This limestone created the White Sea Cliffs, unusually shaped rock formations, and pale-colored beaches. Bermuda is therefore the result of two geological worlds layered on top of each other, an extinct volcano below and coral, shells, and marine sediment transformed into limestone above. Bermuda sits in the middle of the Sargasso Sea, the only sea in the world that is not bordered by land but defined by 4 major ocean currents. The most important is the Gulf Stream, a warm tropical current flowing northward that gives Bermuda a much warmer climate than many places at the same latitude. As a result, the island has a rare subtropical environment in the middle of the North Atlantic, allowing coral reefs to survive farther north than anywhere else on Earth. However, its location in the open ocean also places Bermuda directly in the path of many Atlantic hurricanes. The warm water creates a pleasant climate and a rich ecosystem, but it also exposes the island to the unpredictable power of the ocean. The water around Bermuda is so clear that underwater visibility can reach 60 meters. Beneath the surface are coral reefs, schools of fish, and ecosystems that have developed across the limestone platform surrounding the island. On land, this influence is clearly visible at Horseshoe Bay, a beach famous for its pale pink sand. The color does not come from red coral, as many people believe, but from a tiny marine organism called Homotrema rubrum. These organisms have red shells and live attached to coral reefs. When they are eaten by parrotfish, their shells are crushed into tiny fragments. These pieces drift toward shore, mix with the white sand, and create the distinctive pink color found on many of Bermuda's beaches. The underwater world surrounding the island also contains more than 300 shipwrecks, making Bermuda one of the most famous wreck diving destinations in the world. In the past, coral reefs hidden beneath the surface and the island's position along major shipping routes caused many vessels to meet disaster. Today, those shipwrecks have become part of the ecosystem. Coral grows across the hulls, while fish and other marine creatures find shelter inside the compartments, resting on the ocean floor. While the sea preserves history offshore, the limestone beneath the ground hides another world. Inside Crystal Cave, visitors descend into a space created by water, slowly seeping through the limestone. Around 30,000 years ago, during the last ice age, rainwater began seeping through cracks in the surface. As it moved through the limestone, the water carried minerals with it and deposited them inside the cave. Over tens of thousands of years, this process formed white stalactites, ancient stone columns, and crystal formations across the cave's ceiling. Below them lies a crystal-clear underground lake that reflects the rock structures and makes the space appear to extend even deeper into the earth. Crystal Cave shows that Bermuda's limestone is far from static. It is constantly being dissolved and reshaped by water, creating a network of caves just beneath the surface. From its ancient volcanic foundation, coral reefs, white limestone, pink beaches, and shipwrecks to its crystal caves, Nearly all of Bermuda's beauty comes from the connection between rock and water. But this geological gift also created a serious limitation. In Bermuda, the ocean is everywhere, but not a single drop of seawater is safe to drink. Even when people dig deep underground, all they find is brackish water contaminated by seawater that has seeped through the porous limestone layers below. That is the island's greatest paradox. In the middle of a vast ocean, the most important resource for daily life is not seawater, but the rare drops of fresh water that fall from the sky. No rivers run through the island, and there are no large natural lakes that residents can depend on. Bermuda is formed mainly from limestone, which causes rainwater to seep quickly underground instead of collecting in surface water sources as it does in many other places. As a result, every rainstorm in Bermuda becomes an especially important moment. In many parts of the world, rain is simply a normal weather event. But on this island, in the middle of the ocean, every drop that falls is a source of life that must be valued, forcing people to collect it before it disappears into the ground. Across Bermuda's lush green hillsides, thousands of white rooftops shine in the sunlight, creating a sight more striking than any skyscraper or modern structure. But behind that appearance is a story of adaptation that has quietly shaped life here since the days of the first builders. Whenever rain begins to fall, thin streams of water flow down layers of stepped stone, follow small grooves built into the rooftops, pass through narrow channels, and slowly drain into a storage tank hidden beneath each home. In a place that is always short of fresh water, every drop becomes a source of life, stored within each family's own home. The importance of this system is so great that it has been written directly into building regulations. Every new home must have a water tank with a capacity based on each square meter of roof area. This is not a modern invention created in a laboratory, but the result of generations of careful observation by people who understood that they could not change the island, but they could learn how to adapt to it. Even the pure white color of the rooftops serves a clear purpose. The limestone reflects the intense sunlight, helping keep the collected water cleaner while also making the space below cooler. At the same time, the weight of the stone helps the roofs remain secure during the fierce Atlantic hurricane seasons. In many parts of the world, a roof is simply a sign of the place people return to after a long day. But in Bermuda, it is the starting point of the water supply, a symbol of ingenuity and proof of how people transformed one of nature's harshest limitations into the foundation of an entire prosperous way of life. As the first rays of sunlight spread across the white rooftops, Bermuda wakes to a peaceful rhythm of life. There are no blaring car horns or crowds trapped in traffic. Only the sound of waves striking the limestone shore and the scent of sea salt drifting through narrow roads between residential neighborhoods. On this small island, the distance between people also seems shorter. A trip to work, school, or the store often takes only a few minutes by bicycle, giving people enough time to wave to one another along the way. Since 1951, each household has been allowed to own only one car, while visitors are not permitted to rent private vehicles. This rule was introduced at a time when most of the world had not yet begun thinking about limiting private transportation. As a result, the familiar sounds on Bermuda's streets are scooters quietly passing beneath the trees and ferry horns carrying passengers between the islands rather than the roar of car engines. In a community where many people have known one another since childhood, greetings on the street, conversations with familiar store owners, and support for anyone facing difficulties still happen naturally. When the workday ends, many people return to the sea to fish, sail, or sit and watch the horizon. For Bermudians, the ocean is not a boundary separating them from the world, but a place that holds memories from childhood. However, living on a small island in the open sea also means accepting many limitations. Most goods must cross the ocean before reaching residents. Bermuda cannot produce everything it needs, so food, household necessities, and many essential products must be imported, keeping the cost of living consistently high. The land also cannot be expanded. Building more homes, upgrading infrastructure, or developing large urban areas is always a difficult challenge. As a result, residents must carefully consider how they use every resource and find a way to earn money that does not depend on nature. Looking at Bermuda today, it is difficult to imagine that this land once had almost no clear advantages for development. Standing alone in the vast Atlantic Ocean, Bermuda has no fertile fields, no mineral deposits, and no natural resources substantial enough to help its people become wealthy quickly. But those very limitations force them to find a different path. Instead of viewing the ocean as a barrier separating them from the world, Bermudians transformed the waters surrounding the island into a vast route connecting them to the outside world. Thanks to its location between North America and Europe, Bermuda gradually became an important stop along transatlantic shipping routes. Shipbuilders on the island created the Bermuda sloop, a vessel named after their homeland. Built from native cedar wood that was both lightweight and resistant to rot, these ships were faster and more maneuverable than many European vessels of the same period. In the 18th century alone, Bermudians built nearly 1,000 such vessels. They carried salt from the Turks Islands to ports in North America, generating enormous profits for a territory once considered completely isolated in the middle of the ocean. From there, Bermuda gradually became a bridge between continents, but the island's development did not end with ships. As the world continued to change, Bermudians searched for new industries that matched the advantages they already had, rather than depending on resources that nature had never given them. In Hamilton, the capital of Bermuda, no building is allowed to rise higher than the tower of the city's cathedral. As a result, the island's entire financial district consists of low-rise buildings painted in the same pastel colors as the rest of the city and located only a few steps from the waterfront. Yet inside these modest-looking buildings, financial experts sign contracts worth billions of dollars every day, protecting the world from disasters they themselves may never have witnessed firsthand. Bermuda's strength does not come from anything beneath the ground. It was built on an invisible field, the ability to manage risk for the entire world. That field is reinsurance, the layer of protection behind insurance companies that helps them withstand massive losses caused by superstorms, natural disasters, or crises on a global scale. Its location between North America and Europe, combined with its long maritime history, helped Bermuda build credibility and become home to the headquarters of many international insurance companies. Today, this tiny island controls more than 1/3 of the global reinsurance market, provides more catastrophe coverage to American insurance companies than any other jurisdiction, and manages approximately $1.5 trillion in assets. But even though Bermuda's daily work revolves around contracts and risks from around the world, life on the island still preserves signs of British history, African roots, and an identity found in no other financial center. Among modern buildings and an international pace of life, Bermuda has preserved its own island identity. On the streets, it is common to see Bermudian men wearing formal shirts, ties, and blazers with knee-length shorts and high socks. Bermuda shorts first appeared in the late 19th century, when British officers stationed on the island shortened their trousers to adapt to the hot climate. By the 1920s, business professionals in Hamilton had begun adopting the style. Local tailors later standardized it as office attire. Today, Bermuda is one of the few places where shorts are accepted as formal clothing for men. They are worn by office workers, business leaders, government officials, members of parliament, and even the Premier of Bermuda, becoming a distinctive symbol of the island's elegance. Bermuda's identity is also expressed through the Gombey dance. When the drums begin, Dancers appear in brightly colored costumes, wearing tall peacock feather headdresses and masks that cover their faces. Gombey was created by Africans who were enslaved and brought to Bermuda, helping them preserve a form of artistic expression through hardship. The masks were originally used to hide their identities from slave owners. The dance was once seen as a threat to social order, and at times was allowed to be performed only once a year, or was banned entirely. Today, Gombey has become a way for Bermuda's community to openly preserve its memories and express pride in its roots. Modern offices still stand alongside historic streets. A person can work in international finance, then put on Bermuda shorts and join the rhythm of Gombey drums during festival season. However, protecting its identity is only one part of Bermuda's future. The island is small, expensive, and located in the path of hurricanes, and it continues to face pressures that neither culture nor wealth can completely eliminate. Looking at Bermuda today, it is easy to believe that this is an almost perfect place. Pink sand beaches, crystal clear water in deep shades of blue, white rooftops glowing in the sunlight, and a prosperous economy have turned the island into a dream destination for many people. Yet behind that beauty are limitations that Bermudians face every day. As a small island in the middle of the ocean, Bermuda cannot fully provide everything needed for daily life. Many essential goods must be imported from abroad, keeping the cost of living consistently high, from food and everyday necessities to many other products. Everything must complete a long journey before reaching the island. Limited land area also creates its own challenges. Finding additional space to expand housing, upgrade infrastructure, or build large urban developments is always difficult for an island as small as Bermuda. However, the greatest challenge for an island in the middle of the ocean still comes from nature itself. Every hurricane season reminds Bermudians that their lives are closely tied to the changing conditions of the sea. Tropical storms can bring violent wind gusts and massive waves strong enough to disrupt the daily life of the entire community. Clearly, Bermuda is not an easy place to live, but for the tens of thousands of people born along these streets, leaving the island is not as simple as moving somewhere larger or less expensive. It means leaving the place they have always called home. For those born and raised here, Bermuda has never been just a place on a map. It is where their memories are kept, where familiar roads once took them to school each day, where the coastline is tied to peaceful afternoons, and where white-roofed homes have sheltered their families since childhood. Life on this island offers something that is becoming increasingly valuable, a sense of peace that many other places have gradually lost. But for Bermudians, home has never been measured by convenience. A place worth living does not have to be completely free of hardship. It has to be a place where people truly feel they belong. That is also why many Bermudians still choose to stay, not because the island is perfect, but because despite its countless limitations, it still gives them what matters most, the feeling of coming home. In the vast Atlantic Ocean, Bermuda is only a tiny island. But beyond the stories of the Bermuda Triangle, the pink sand beaches, and its remarkable wealth, what ultimately remains is not what makes the world curious, but the story of the people who chose to build their lives on this land. Because sometimes, the value of a place is not found in its size or the resources it possesses, but in the way people love it, protect it, and call it home. And with that, our journey through Bermuda comes to an end. A small, expensive island with almost no natural resources, yet still a prosperous home to more than 60,000 people in the middle of the Atlantic. How do you feel about life here? If you had the opportunity, would you want to move to Bermuda? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit like and subscribe to join us on our next journeys. See you next time.